Hello, good morning, Amek. First, I want to thank Dr. Gardner again for her presence in our forum. We are honored by your participation, Dr. Gardner, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am absolutely passionate about this topic of smarter collaboration. And although I'm sorry I can't join you in person, I hope these ideas will spark some new ways of thinking. And I will welcome an exchange of ideas following this as well.
As you will know, Dr. Gardner, in an international industrial community such as AMEC is, collaboration is vital to face the different industrial challenges. One of our main focuses is, as an association, is bringing companies together and generate the perfect ecosystem for these collaborations to take place. In fact, days like today are a great example of many industrial manufacturers eager to learn how they can be more competitive through industrial collaboration. Even though we have been promoting collaboration for more than 53 years, we have never heard about the smart collaboration. So you tell us, what is it exactly? What is the difference between a smart collaboration and the collaboration we all know?
Well, absolutely. And again, I am grateful that I can have the opportunity to discuss this with you. I think the opportunity for SMEs to engage in collaboration has never been higher. I think there's a real imperative for people to be joining forces. And we've captured our thinking in a couple of these books here, and I'll refer to them throughout today's talk. In case you're interested in getting more information, you'll know where to go. But why is it that I'm saying that smarter collaboration is not just nice to have, but it's absolutely necessary? Well, the idea is that we have two trends that have been kind of bubbling up for the last maybe 2 decades. And now they have taken on so much strength that they're crashing into each other. So the first of these trends, we call it specialized expertise. This means that all of you have developed a real world-class discipline in whatever your area of business is. So for you as a manufacturer, you need to know everything there is to know about those particular products, the manufacturing from end to end. And you are going to have people in your organization who understand the operations, the supply chain, the business side of it. And all of those people have become narrower experts as they have progressed in their careers. And the problem is this: our problems are what we call VUCA. Have you ever heard of that acronym? In English, it's VUCA. It stands for volatile, meaning that things are changing fast, fast, fast. Uncertain, meaning the future is hard to predict. Think of all these challenges around us: geopolitics, the economy, the effect of things like artificial intelligence, AI. All of this makes our business world very uncertain. That's the U. C is complex. That means that there's lots of pieces to all of these kinds of problems, and they're interconnected. And the A is for ambiguity. That means sometimes there are problems that we're facing and we don't even know what the root cause is. VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous problems. They're big, hairy, thorny problems. And you've got narrow, deep experts inside your business and across the different members of AMEC. That's why we need you to engage in smarter collaboration. It's taking these different pieces of knowledge, different experiences, different perspectives, and joining forces so that collectively you can tackle more complex problems than any of you could do on your own. So I just challenge you for a minute to think about, what are those complex issues that are perhaps bigger than you can handle in your own company? Maybe it is something about the economy. What benefits could you get from teaming up with some of your fellow AMEC members to discuss how you're going to handle the impact of a particular aspect of maybe this recession? Or is there something in supply chain that if you work together, you could band together and become more powerful? Is there something about the political situation that creates uncertainty for you, And if you joined across this ecosystem, again, you could tackle this more effectively than you could do on your own. That's exactly what we mean by smarter collaboration. And this is, I'll share with you in a little while why we know this to be true. It is absolutely crucial for business success.
Very interesting, Dr. Gardner. But let me tell you, our experience tells us that collaborating is not easy. It requires effort and time, something that is never in excess in an industrial company. So, what would you say to an industrial manufacturer that thinks collaboration is not necessary? That it will take a great deal of work and time before the benefits of collaboration become apparent, if they ever do?
Well, I have absolute belief that what you have just said is true. Collaboration is costly and risky and time consuming, and people do need to be convinced that the investment will pay out. And here's why I am so personally convinced that this is worth the effort. We have conducted research for more than 10 years at Harvard University, and we've collected data from all kinds of organizations, including in Spain, including SMEs, including product manufacturers. So maybe we haven't worked with each of you directly, but we do know your kinds of companies. And the data and the analysis that we have collected tell us beyond a shadow of a doubt that it does pay out if you engage in it in a smart way. So let's start with one of those benefits. Absolutely, it is clear that if you team up with the right people and do it efficiently, you will end up generating higher revenues and profits. Here's what we have observed. I'm going to share some data with you. It's disguised data at this point, so I don't put specific numbers on, but stick with me and think about what would the numbers look like in your company. What we analyzed is the number of different business lines serving a customer. And we've replicated this. We call it firm A, firm B, lots of different companies. What we see is that within a company, if you have different products or different product groupings, if you can bring those together in a way that meets your customers' needs more holistically, you will end up generating significantly higher revenue per customer than if you were to sell each of those different products one by one by one. If what you were doing is simply working in silos, imagine that you're manufacturing product number one, and the team that's out there selling product number one is just operating by themselves. But you also have products number two and three, and everyone is out there working to drum up more sales for their individual products. What we know is that that is never going to create the real value, either for your customers or within the company. And here's why. If you have a joined up effort in the sales team, and that sales team, they're talking to each other about opportunities for the next product and the next product, they can really help each other generate leads and close the deals. And if you have collaboration so that the salespeople are coming back and talking to your product development people, talking to the manufacturing folks, talking to operations, talking to marketing, if that dialogue and that collaboration is real and people are sharing what they're hearing from customers out in the market and they're working together to optimize your solutions, that's going to generate significantly higher revenues. You know, what we heard from a CFO, now this is the CFO of a really big company, he said, margins rise with complexity. So when you have your people working together, either across different functions or departments in your own company, and when you're able to team up with other members of AMEC who can help you crack those tough VUCA problems, that's where the complexity lies. And the more you can solve those complex issues, the more the financial benefits flow in. Now, we also have looked at a different kind of outcome, a different kind of benefit of collaboration. Again, you can start to see I'm a total nerd. I love numbers and analytics, and everything that we are saying to you is backed up by data. What we have here is data on patents that were granted for different kinds of inventions. And it shows you how many people were teaming up. So, what we are able to see here is the number of inventors per patent. So, take a look at that big blue bar at the bottom. That shows the number of solo inventors. And you can see that proportion has been dipping over time. These days, solo inventors get only half the number of patents that they used to back when this data collection started. But at the same time, three-person patent teams have doubled in importance, and seven-person patent teams have exploded in terms of their ability to innovate and generate the kinds of innovations that deserve patents. So, what I would ask you to think about is who in your organization should be teaming up across different kinds of boundaries so that you can create the innovations that your customers deserve and demand. It's not just having more people working together, it's getting the right kinds of people working together. So you need to think very carefully about, do you have the right people inside your company to generate these innovations? Or again, do you need to look at the ecosystem? Is there somebody outside your individual company who can spark some ideas or help you take your new thinking and put it into practice? Because none of us are in a position where we can stand still. We all need to be innovating, changing, creating in order to become more competitive. Now, the last thing I will share with you in terms of business outcomes, we'll get at some of you who are sitting there saying, okay, but what's in it for me? Well, we wanted to answer that question too. As I said, we've got millions of data records. We were able to find two people who worked in a company, and they are nearly identical in terms of what they look like. They're both men, how long they've been working, the kind of business that they operate in. And in this same company, we have these two people, but they behave really differently. And because they behave really differently, we can tie their behavior to their performance. Here's this. Do you know how to read one of these maps? It's a collaboration map. Every dot here represents a relatively senior person in this company. And the one who's circled, we joke that he's a twin, right? Because he has so many characteristics in common with his colleagues. So twin number one, his dot is circled, it's connected to these other dots. It means that those 6 or 7 people have worked together on the same project for an extensive amount of time in a given year. So think about them. They've joined up maybe across functions and they're trying to tackle a really tough problem. Maybe it's bringing a new product to market. Now take a look at his colleague, the same company in the same year, and this guy does the same kind of work as his colleague, but see how different his collaboration map is? He's working with many people. Oh, and I forgot to mention, they're color coded by department or function. And you can see that Twin 2 is connected to people with more colors. In other words, he's accessing more different kinds of people across the organization. And do you notice something else? There's more lines in this diagram. That means that Twin 2 is choosing to work with people who are highly connected. Those are the kinds of people who have access to resources, people who know how things work. They're in the ecosystem, they're out there generating conversations, they're out there experimenting, they're hooked into new ideas. And because Twin 2 has all of these sources of information, he has more people he can go to for help and advice and inputs. What we see is when we compare their business outcomes, Twin 2 is 4 times higher performer than Twin 1. So I'd ask you to think about your own network. If you're one of these very highly connected people, you're constantly collaborating with new people who know different things from you, how does that help you in your business? My guess is it brings you lots of information and knowledge. You can get help when you need it. And by being connected to people who also have good networks, even if your direct contacts don't have an answer for you, they'll put you in touch with somebody who does. And so there's lots of different ways that Twin 2 benefits from having this broad, diverse network. And the very last thing I'll say about this is collaboration leads to higher performance because Twin 2 is not only better connected, he's smarter about how he uses collaboration. You notice that he's not directly in the center. He's got the ability to spark some work and some conversations and some data collection and some whatever he needs to get done. And he lets people run with it. He empowers people in his network, and he's strategic about when he gets involved and when he doesn't. Because back to the conversation in your question, you got to started saying, is it worth our time? Collaboration has to be very intentional and deliberate. People have to be thinking about when they can be most efficient and when it is best for them to jump into a collaboration or a team that's working to achieve an outcome. If you're smart about when and how you use collaboration, you can absolutely capture some of these benefits like higher revenues and profits, personal professional success, more and better innovation, and more satisfied customers and happier employees.
Really inspiring, Dr. Garner. Uh, I would take some of the things that you said and just I will repeat that. Think about your network. Think about the members of AMEC. No, also we can say, I believe, think about the different members that surround the community, and also think about how you can use the resources of these members. I guess, no, taking a little bit of the words that you said. Even though
100%. I couldn't agree more.
I would say you have convinced us. We have seen things that I'm sure that until now we didn't know. We know now that collaboration is vital and it is worth dedicating the necessary resources to develop it. Now, what are the steps we need to take? Tell me, Dr. Garner, because I want to take some notes. From your experience, what are the critical aspects to get a good start?
Absolutely. So, the first thing I would say for everyone, just to echo a point you made, is think about the other members of AMEC. Who knows something that you don't? Who has a a contact that perhaps you'd like to know? Can you lean on them and say, will you make an introduction for me? Who has maybe a great supply source? Who has an expert that can help you and provide some advice? Those are the first things we want you to be thinking about, is how to use these other members to complement what you already know. Now, when we're thinking about collaborating with third parties, that means collaborating across different companies. How do you actually go about doing it right? Well, the first thing is be selective. So you can't possibly collaborate with all of the AMEC members. How are you going to choose which ones? Which are the people and the organizations that would benefit most from combining their knowledge, their know how, their customer base, their insights with you? So be very thoughtful about which partnerships benefit from smarter collaboration and make sure you're investing in those relationships. If you're thinking about collaborating with another AMEC member, this can't just be a transaction. It can't be, I give you something, you give me something, done. This is thinking about building a relationship for the longer term. And that means you can only invest in a certain number. So, first of all, be selective. Also, we say manage your culture. So, if you have an organization where people trust each other, where they're willing to help each other, where they're willing to ask questions, where they're willing to make mistakes, where they embrace other kinds of perspectives, that is a brilliant culture which lends itself to people being curious about partnering with other companies that have a similar culture. Right. So, if on the other hand, maybe you have expanded quite a bit recently and you have lots of new people in your organization, they don't really know each other, it's worth strengthening the foundations of collaboration within your own company before you ask people to take an extra risk by collaborating with a different company. So, trust and inclusivity start at home. That means take a hard look in the mirror and find out if you've got the foundations in place that allow your people to be truly inquisitive about what they could get working with others outside your company. And are they excited to do that? Now, we know that these partnerships can be hard work. It's not just getting them kicked off, It's sustaining the ability to work together. And that means you need to have champions. So senior leaders in your company, they have to understand why you're partnering. They have to believe in this. They have to invest in this personally, and they have to build one-to-one relationships with their counterparts in the other company. Those relationships are absolutely vital because no relationship is perfect. You will hit some road bumps down the way. Maybe you had a misunderstanding, maybe an innovation didn't work. Whatever the problem is, if you have a trusting relationship, it is going to be much easier to resolve those issues than if you don't have these senior champions in place. And then the last thing I will say is maybe you need to take a look at some existing relationships you've already got and figure out what's happening. Sometimes relationships go stale. So you have to be very thoughtful, not just to leave these relationships kind of trundling on and ignore them and hope that they re-spark, but review them and say, this one is no longer working for us. We're going to say thank you very much, shake hands, and agree not to be working together next year. Or you take a look at it and you say, actually, there's so much potential here. Let's reinvest. How do we reinvigorate this? How do we get it off to a fresh start again? And maybe that's by building some senior champions and putting your heads together and figuring out where smarter collaboration is going to make the most sense for you. So we have a whole chapter in our book devoted to this idea of 30-party collaboration. And we'd refer people there. There's lots of practical tips and even some case studies in there to help people think about how they move this forward. And I know you've got some case studies coming up for people as well. I think those are going to be very powerful.
Exactly. Thank you very much for your advice. Surely the attending companies, Dr. Gardner, will be taking good note of them. First, before we finish, I would like to go through a little bit of the things that you said that I think might be interesting to keep on top of mind. You told us that we are in a VUCA environment. In AMEC, we are pretty aware of what it is. So we have seen this through these years. Also, it's important to engage for creating higher revenues. I think that at the end of the day, most of the general managers or sales managers, they might ask us, show me the money. Where is the money? No? So at the end, I guess that engaging for creating these higher revenues is important at the end of the day. Margins will rise with complexity. This is something that we might not seek for easy collaborations. At the end, what can take us through a profitable collaboration might need many different departments to come together from different companies. And this is something that you told us today, and we really need to keep in mind. Something that I really appreciate, and I'm pretty sure most of the companies will have a lot of questions on this, is about innovation. What you showed us about solo investors. I believe that most of our companies, to be competitive in the market right now, they need to keep a very high-end product to compete with the different markets. So if they really want to have more patents, if they want to be in top of the innovation, they need to collaborate with, as you well said, and thank you, Dr. Gardner, with other members of AMEC. This is something interesting to keep in mind also. And at the end, and we already said about this, so think about your network to expand the resources. This is something also that in AMEC we are keen to do with our members, and I really appreciate that you could walk us through this. I really appreciate it, Dr. Gardner. I would love to keep talking with you, to keep getting information from you, but unfortunately, time is over and we must finish. But before we go, I would like to thank you again. I think all that we have seen today really frames the Forum AMEC in the best way to continue. And we really appreciate that you could walk us through the concept of smart collaboration, Dr. Gardner. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much. Y ahora sí, volvemos a Barcelona, volvemos al IS. Muchas gracias y que disfrutéis del Forum AMEC.